Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we are discussing another question from General Studies Mains 2024 previous year question from General Studies paper 1. General Studies paper 1, the question number 12 is essentially a question from the First World War, the world history. After a gap of long years again, UPSC is asking questions from world history, particularly the First World War is an important topic in the First World War within the world history. Now, let us identify the question. Let us try to understand the question even before analyzing and discussing about the answer. See, the question, one thing we need to note is there is no specific directive. No specific directive. The only directive is how far is it. Means we need to assess how the given statement is correct. To what extent is it correct? Means we need to give our own observation that how far is it correct to say that the First World War was fought essentially for the preservation of balance of power. See, here the key words are the First World War. The second key word is balance of power. These are the two key words which we need to focus. The entire question surrounds these two aspects. So, coming to the structure of the question, we need to highlight that how the attempt for preservation, attempt for preservation of balance of power is responsible for the First World War. And we need to also validate the reasons supporting this argument, the balance of power. Especially you can give the reasons like the alliance system, the secret alliances, the triple alliance and the triple intent, triple alliance and triple intent, the system of alliances, and the second important aspect, the rivalry, the rivalry among the European powers, among imperial powers, especially Germany versus France, Germany versus England, especially over naval supremacy, Russia and Austria over the control of Balkan states, the control of Balkan states, and other aspects form important topics to be mentioned in the terms of balance of power. Next, the other part of the question, the other aspect which needs to be focused is apart from balance of power, what are the other causes or factors which led to the Great War? Led to the Great War of 1914 to 18. See here in this aspects, we need to discuss about other factors, especially the factors like nationalism, extreme nationalism, the issue of propaganda, vicious propaganda, the extreme militarism, which has created an atmosphere of extreme rivalry and armed confrontation necessary. Next, the other aspect is the colonial rivalry between the European powers, especially Germany, Britain, France, and Italy over colonial powers or colonial colonies. These form the important aspects which needs to be covered in this question. So this is a broad structure and framework of the question. Now After discussing the broad structure and framework, now let us discuss the model answer for this question. See, now let us focus on the model answer. Specifically, the question is related to the First World War, 1914 to 1918. So, in the introduction, we can have to directly mention the First World War, its importance, particularly the period in which it was held, 1914 to 1918. Next, here even here in the first introduction itself, we have mentioned about the alliances system, the triple entente and triple alliance. This may or may not mention in the introduction because as it forms the hallmark of the expression called balance of power. This is a very key aspect to be mentioned within the introduction. Now let us see. See here, see in this map, the Axis powers and Allied powers have been differentiated by colors. The red colored powers were all allies, which is predominantly led by the United Kingdom, United States, France, and Russia. Whereas the Central powers are mainly led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. Here, the balance of power which was essentially used was especially from the perspective of British, French, and Dutch, who were dominating the European politics before the rise of the Germany and Italy. So it was essentially the British, France, and Dutch. They had established vast colonies and ensured a type of harsh peace, harsh imposed peace on the European continent. Harsh imposed peace on the continent through their military and colonial might. Especially Britain, with its vast colonial empire, controlled the politics in Europe. So they had a great urge to maintain their power. They want to ensure the balance of power in their favor. They wanted to restrict Germany, Italy, and other players from taking their position, taking their colonies, taking their industries. This is essentially dealing with the title balance of power. Now, let us discuss about the aspects which support this idea of balance of power. The first one, as we have already said, it is essentially about the alliances, the system of secret alliances which facilitated this harsh balance of power, the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. Next, another important factor was the rising naval confrontation, armed confrontation, especially between German and British. The Germany's rapid industrial rise has become a challenge to the British industrial might. The third one, as we have discussed, the colonial rivalries, the crave for new colonies, the craving for imperial expansion fostered Germany and Italy to challenge this order or this balance of power in their favor. Next, this conflict has led to several crises, which led to outbreak of war, which were at the verge of outbreak of war, especially the Moroccan crisis, the Agadir incident, and all. They all might have triggered a war even before 1914, but they have been settled. Now, next, the other reasons are the rivalry, the Balkan issue between Austria-Hungary and Russia. This formed another important aspect which led to immediate outbreak of war. As we all know, the immediate cause of outbreak of war was the assassination of Austrian Duke Ferdinand. It triggered the immediate war against Germany, Austria. which, which later engulfed into the First World War. Initially, it was targeted as a localized confrontation between only Austria and Serbia, but soon it escalated into the whole world, essentially because of the secret alliances. Next, another important aspect which facilitated harsh rivalry and the fear of suspicion and intense hatred was France's loss of Alsace and Lorraine in the Franco-Prussian War of 1871. The Franco-Prussian War of 1871 had left deep marks on the French, who craved for revenge against the Germans. Next, see, these are all the factors which reflect the elements of balance of powers. But on the other side, the other important factors which necessitated the outbreak of war is, as we have discussed, the first one is nationalism, extreme nationalism, which fueled the Balkan movement, where they wanted to get independence from Austrian control. So they started this assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which led to the immediate outbreak of the war. Next, apart from nationalism, the imperial rivalry between Germany, Britain, and France also triggered great suspicion and hatred, which was restricted to some extent, but finally it was let loose with the outbreak of the First World War. The other examples or other factors have been already discussed: the rise of militarism, the economic competition between Germany and Britain, and extreme propaganda, vicious propaganda. These are the factors which led to the First World War. So, in conclusion, we can state that the First World War was indeed fought by the Allies, especially Britain. Britain essentially fought the First World War to ensure the balance of power, to ensure the balance of power. But the other powers, there were several other motives behind the First World War. There were nationalism, militarism, vicious propaganda, and colonial rivalry. But overall, we can state that the First World War is a remarkable event which changed the course of the world history. Thank you. Tomorrow we'll be discussing next question.